So, we now move into a crucial point in the day, because this is now the third and final race coming up for the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy and the TCR UK Championship, including the VW Cup as well. There are champions to crown in both, a Dunlop Touring Car Trophy champion and a Volkswagen Racing Cup champion coming today. It is once again under overcast skies here at Donington Park, but the racing is as bright as ever, and it's going to be a showdown once more between current points leader Henry Neal and Lewis Kent. Effectively, Henry Neal looks to be in the driving seat, no pun intended, for the title, but Lewis Kent will try to fight every single step of the way on this last race of the season to try and deny that from happening, or at least try to prolong it as much as possible. At least in VW Cup as well, Andy Wilmot is also going to try and look to see if he can wrap up the title as well at the wheel of his team behind Volkswagen. But there, just behind the BMW safety car, are the two main championship contenders, the white, orange and black car of Lewis Kent, the Hyundai i30N TCR, and the black and white FN2 Honda Civic NGTC touring car of Henry Neal, the only NGTC or non-TCR touring car in the pack, and he is hoping that he can possibly come away with the title, which he would love to do, because it means he would emulate in some cases his three-time British touring car champion father, Matt, because of course he will have a touring car title of his own for him to cherish going into next season. And who knows, maybe going forwards, he may well possibly want to take the place or join his father Matty in the British touring cars in the future. And this may well be a perfect stepping stone for him to have taken a full season's worth of running in an NGTC spec car. But of course, here and now, the touring car trophy for just about any NGTC or TCR touring cars who want to take part. It's a brilliant way to go touring car racing on less of a budget than they might think you might need. And of course, it's also an opportunity for possibly some other drivers to take the fight to them and possibly get some good results. One driver you have to keep on looking for, of course, is Sam Osborne, because he's come so close to a strong result in the first two races. But again, it seems to be, for some reason, on the same point of the race at the same part of the circuit. The PMR Trade Price Cars Racing Cupra, the white, gold and black car, just behind Henry Neal's car, you can see behind the fencing, car number 7, just for whatever reason is having some kind of an issue which is preventing him from finish the race, and so he could have got some great points, but unfortunately the results that he's got from this weekend don't truly show exactly what pace he's had. So hopefully the car can make it to the end of the race on this third one and actually get him the result which he deserves. We've also got Max Hart as well, of course, who has been pretty much, I think the word for the day is defend, because whenever he's got in front of both Henry Neal or Lewis Kent, he's had to pretty much get his elbows out as much as he can and stop them from getting through. So he's frustrated Lewis Kent no end in race 1, frustrated Henry Neal for a while in race 2, but again still finds himself ending up in that third place. He's owning that third place. He's pretty much not only owning it, he's owning it. He refuses to let it out to anyone else. Of course, at one point more than one point in this weekend, he has been in the position where he could either get second or even a race win, because he led throughout the second race before being switched back because he was under threat from Lewis Kent and Henry Neal, and also from Sam Osborne. As the cars make their way out of the pit lane, the heading rounds, the group will throw down to Andy shortly when they start to arrive. But the crucial thing is now, as they get around to the circuit, on these slick tyres on still relatively cold track, you can see Hart Wakefield's Maximum Motorsport car slithering around there. They're sort of pulling the handbrake a little bit and trying to warm those rear tyres in, because of course in a front wheel drive car, because there's no drive going to the rear wheels, they have to get as much heat as they can in by trying to weave the cars around from side to side. The more they can do that, the more they can get the heat in and generate. But they'll do that on the formation lap as well, and also to get as much heat into the brakes as well, because one thing you don't want, particularly in the first lap, with cold tyres, you don't want to ting that with cold brakes, because otherwise that's just a recipe for disaster, and you ain't stopping that quickly with cold tyres and cold brakes with no grip and no friction on them. Oh, and in the background, Hart Wakefield, just spotted in the background there, has shown exactly how cold it is out there, because he's slithered off the road and actually got sideways whilst he was warming up his tyres through the Crater curve. So that was a bit of an embarrassment. Is that Max Hart? It might be Max Hart, actually. Either way, it's one of the Maximum Motorsport Civics that went off. Again, we mentioned, of course, for the VW Cup cars, of course, it's now a partially reversed grid for them, which means that Jack Depper is going to hopefully pick up his third win from three races now, because he's won the first two races pretty convincingly. But it's Andy Wilmot who leads the way in the points. He'll try and hold on to those as strong as he can. There's another one of our championship contenders, Bradley Kent. Hasn't had the most ideal of weekends, but all the fortunes to go his way in this last race in order to try and still have a chance of wrapping up that title. There's Jack Depper in the black and yellow Scirocco. There is one of the two Team Hard Volkswagen Golf. Good to see them back in Team Hard in VW Cup this weekend. They missed around Silverstone, but Team Hard are involved in just about everything out there in motorsport. Of course, they've been BTCC. Of course, they've got cars in Carrera Cup this year. They've got cars in Ginettas. They've got cars in other championships further afield, even as far as truck racing, in fact. So really breaking out to different ventures for Tony Gillam's squad. That's impressive stuff. So cars make their way around to the grid. So what we will do is hand around to my very capable co-commentator Andy McEwen. We'll be able to have a chat to them as they come across the grid and give you a rundown of who is where.
Saturday, the started on the outlap, and then
This is it then, the final round of the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy, and it's all on the line with Henry Neal and Lewis Kent separated by just over 10 points. Lewis Kent really needs to try and win this race to have any chance of wrestling the title away from Henry Neal. Then you've got the VW Racing Cup, where it's equally tight, with Andy Wilmot trying to keep Bradley Kent at bay, Lewis's younger brother, at bay for the championship. Well, Lewis arrives here behind me on the front row of the grid, pole position for the TCR champion for 2020, Lewis Kent. And once his team have finished having a chat with him, I think I might try and dive in and have a word. Let's see if that's possible then, see if he's willing to talk. Is Lewis ready to have a chat with us maybe? Is that okay if I just... I'm going to do it anyway. Lewis, sorry to interrupt you. I'm sure you're in the zone ahead of this race. How are the nerves? It's the championship decider.
Yeah, no, they're not actually that too bad, you know. Last race of the year, we've already wrapped one championship up, so I feel like this is just go out and have a bit of fun. We're just going to go out, see how we get on, and yeah, hopefully we can get a win under our belt as well.
Well, it's a track that suits the Hyundai. You were on fire in the previous race. Best of luck, mate.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Lewis Kent then in the Hyundai on pole position. Now it's Henry Neal that he's got to try and beat for the championship, remember. Henry beat him in the previous race, but it so easily could have ended the other way round. See if we can just dive in for a quick chat with Henry. How are you feeling ahead of this final race of the year, mate? Are you nervous?
I'll be lying if I said no. You know, I think I've worked it out. If Lewis wins this, we've got to finish fourth. So we've just got to try and bring it home. You know, don't get me wrong, I'll be going for the win. But first and foremost, I need to bring it home. That's all. So yeah, just looking for a good, solid top four finish.
You've put an awful lot into this campaign, not just this year but last year. It would mean a lot, wouldn't it, if you could pull it off?
Oh, mega, mate. It's more for all these lads working on the car right now, because they're all doing it off their own back. They don't get paid to come and do the TCT weekends. So it's for them, you know, and it's for everyone who's put faith in me to run this. So, yeah.
Well, best of luck, Henry, then we'll leave you to it. Let's see who else we can find there. We've got a few more minutes, I think, before the race gets underway. Sam Osborne, third on the grid. Now, he was a contender for the race victory in the previous race, sadly had a problem. Let's see if we can dive in and find out what the problem was. Sam, welcome to the championship, first of all. Good to have you here. What was the problem in the previous race?
Unfortunately, we've just had a drive shaft go. So, unfortunately, that led to 2 DNFs, one in the first race and one in the second race.
It's a real shame because you've got race-winning pace, I think, haven't you?
Yeah, we've got fastest lap in both races. Once was pretty good, and the second one we made a little bit of a change, and it really helped us. So that was great.
Some serious multitasking there. Well done, mate. I'll leave you to it.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
Sam Osborne then third on the grid. It's Max Hart fourth on the grid, and fifth position for Darrell Wilson. The VW Racing Cup, of course, right at the back of the field. I don't think we've got time to get down there, but that is the battle between Andy Wilmot in the Team Hard Golf and Bradley Kent, who's been a little bit off pace this weekend. Can he fight back and claim the title away? It's all to play for in both categories, with one more 20-minute race around the fabulous Donington Park National Circuit still to come. Scott, I don't know about you, I'm starting to feel the nerves down here. I think this is going to be exciting, isn't it?
I think more than nerves, but the phrase is rubs hands with glee. This is going to be quite a fantastic one to watch. Now, one thing I'm interested to see is that we've actually got one of the Maxim Motorsport Cupras on the grid, because I can't see Mark Wakefield for some reason. Looking at my screen here, no, because then we've got 3 Coopers on the grid. We've got Sam Osborne, Max Hart, and we have also got William Butler after he went off into the tyres at the top of Hollywood, but no Mark Wakefield for some reason, which is a shame, unless they're doing some extra work and he'll start from the pit lane, in which case that'll be quite convenient. But Jeff Alden's car is there at the back. You can just see on the right-hand side, at the back of the right-hand side of the grid, the 4th car on the right-hand side there, that being Jeff Alden, his first weekend in the now Matrix Motorsport owned, or Matrix Motorsport run or assisted Honda Civic Type R, the older shape FN2 shape Honda Civic Type R TCR car, which is effectively the same generation as Henry Neal's NGTC machine, although it's a different spec, of course, being TCR to NGTC. As we come onto the grid, of course. So here's the grid then for this important season finale. This is the showdown. Lewis Kent versus Henry Neal for the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy title. Sam Osborne on the 3rd on the grid. Alongside him is Max Hart, who we're hoping to try and break the streak of finishing anything other than 3rd place. But it's Darrell Wilson and William Butler. Then, of course, no Tim Docker. And I saw as well no Mark Wakefield either for some reason on the grid, unless he's in the pit lane. And we've got Jeff Alden on the grid as well in the mix in 9th place on the grid. Then we go back to our VW Cup cars with Jack Depper and Howard Fuller on the front row of the grid. Josh Coggan and points leader Andy Wilmot, who'll be on the 2nd row for the VWs, followed then on the 3rd row for them by Paul Ivans and Bradley Kent, then Martin Depper, and Richard Gilbert is on the grid at the back once again. So both of the JM Racing cars are in there. Russell Joyce should also be on the grid as well. So the 30-second boards are up. This is it, Andy. This is crunch point in the championship, and this is going to be a key one. The 2 main contenders again end up on the front rows. It's pretty much it's been the story of the season. Those 2 battling for the championship, always pretty much starting on the front row. Tension's real, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean they've won every race between them, those 2, haven't they? Henry Neal now has 2 more victories, and the pattern of the season was broken in that earlier race today because this is the 3rd event of the year. And across the first 5 races I should say, Henry Neal had won every race 1 of the weekend, and Lewis had won every race 2. But Henry, of course, with that fighting drive in the previous race, was able to come through and snatch another race victory. And that does now give him this advantage, doesn't it? 15 points, it means that even if Lewis Kent wins, a podium or even a top 4 might be enough for Henry. It sounds like he's on top of the maths, and he's a very level-headed character, actually, for someone relatively young. He's been racing for a number of years, and it's not like his dad, Matt, to get to flap about things either, is it? I think he's inherited that cool, calm exterior, but I could definitely sense nerves from him when I was chatting to him just now on the grid. Lewis, on the other hand, a big difference from when I last spoke to him after the previous race. When I spoke to him after race 2, you could feel the disappointment just radiating off him, but he sounded confident then on the grid. He knows all he can do is win the race. If he wins the race, it's out of his hands. So he's got one objective: good start, get the lead into turn 1 and try to pull away. Then the pressure is on Henry. Henry has to perform, he can't make any mistakes. He hasn't had a bad race yet this year. Maybe this is the time when he might get a bit of bad luck, who knows. So fascinating dynamic between those 2 young chargers, both of them destined, I think, for great things in the world of touring car racing. Henry, of course, with his familial links, but Lewis has also been competing over in Europe, in TCR Europe, and was trying to get over into the WTCR field as well originally this year. Obviously owned by factory support as well, maybe. So they're both drivers we're going to be hearing a lot of, I think, over the coming years, and this really does matter an awful lot to both of them.
I think also quite special for Henry, and of course for the whole Neal family, because of course it means that Henry gets a chance to, in some ways, emulate his father in winning a touring car title. Of course, it'll be his first. Obviously, Matt's won 3 of them himself. But what's crucial, of course, with Henry having Matt as a father is that he will know exactly. Matt's done this so many times before, being in the mix for the title. This is interesting. Just information from our friend from TCR guru Phil Kinch, give him a shout out, who's here this weekend. Interesting enough to say, Mark Wakefield has switched cars, so effectively the car which was being driven by Jeff Alden, he's now actually relinquished that, and Mark Wakefield is now in there. So we'll get to see an interesting point. Now, Sam Osborne's car, yet again, is having mechanical issues. I didn't quite catch the interview. Did he say what the issue was with that car?
I think he said, yeah. So that looks suspiciously like a similar problem, because the car has just died a death, hasn't it, going up the hill. So that is such a shame. I really was tipping him for a race win today.
I did notice when he was going down to the training curves, that car, there was a bit of a gap between the top 2 because they kind of raced away off towards the grid, whereas Sam Osborne's car was a bit further back as he was sort of trying to get through there. So whether that's drive shaft or something else, but it's not been pace-wise. He's been brilliant, but just getting the result and getting to the end, it's just not Sam Osborne's weekend, is it?
It really hasn't been, but very talented driver. I don't really think he's been able to show his talents to the best of his abilities in the BTCC this year. He's been very unlucky, got involved in a few skirmishes he could have done without. Yeah, talented driver, and shame that he's not going to be out there. This might lead to a delayed start as well, because that car ain't going anywhere. Marshals, of course, can't approach the car properly, so they're having to listen into what he's describing to them. But if he's saying he's got no power, he's going to need to be towed out of the way. Worth giving the VW Racing Cup some attention here as well. Only 14 points in it between Andy Wilmot and Bradley Kent, neither of whom start on pole position. It's Jack Depper, the race 2 winner, who will be lining up first. In fact, double win so far this weekend on his first appearance this season in the category, although he did race last year in the VW Cup. There are more points available in VW Cup than there are in TCT. You get 44 points for a race win in the VW Racing Cup. So, although it is a slightly bigger lead for Wilmot over Bradley Kent than it is for Henry Neal over Lewis Kent in TCT, it's actually less secure in a way. If Wilmot were to have a bad result in this one, he could very conceivably end up losing the championship lead.
We should mention, we're just anticipating if it was going to be a delayed start or not. We are just anticipating the fact that, of course, this is a weekend which for the VW Cup is one in which, oh no, they are going to make a race start. So 5 second wall is up then. This is it.
Here we go then, final round of the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy. Lights go out, away they go. It's not a great start from Henry Neal again. He's going to lose second place to Max Hart. Further back in the VW Cup, Bradley Kent has had a shocker as well, but his brother Lewis is leading the pack into Redgate Corner. Max Hart goes to the outside to challenge for the race lead though. The Irish driver is sideways on cold tyres. He can't get into the corner first. It's Kent that leads, Hart is second. Henry Neal with a mega run out of the corner, pulls alongside the Cooper as they go into the Craner curves. He wants to get into second and try to get his head down and escape after Lewis Kent. Kent leads then, Neal second. The top 2 in the championship are the top 2 in the race, but in reverse order. Hart third, Wilson in 4th position. VW Cup, it's Ogden is that out in front, I think. Yes, it is, because Richard Gilbert, the other green car, is further back. But there, look, is Bradley Kent. The orange and white number 44 car has not had a good getaway at all. So one Kent brother has a demon start, gets the race lead. The other one, though, with work to do.
One thing to mention, Sam Osborne's car did get restarted. I saw it somewhere with all its tyres in the background, and I think I've just heard it coming into the pit lane. So whatever the issue was, he's got it back again. Paul Butler gets a little rocky over the curbs as he comes out through Copper's Corner onto the back straight. So Sam Wilson's car's been refired. They can get it quickly redone. He'll have to go down a lap, unfortunately, but he can still show his pace in terms of where he could have been. But at the front of the field, this is crucial. As you mentioned, all Lewis Kent can do is push as hard as he can and go for this victory. That's all he can do. He just needs to know effectively, he effectively controls in terms of what he can do. As for Henry Neal, well, it's up to him in terms of just getting the car done and getting it down to the end. But if he's under pressure from the likes of Max Hart here, again, Max Hart's not in contention for this, but he doesn't care. He's just racing for himself. He doesn't want to finish in 3rd place yet again. He wants to go for 2nd or higher, so he'll be going up for himself here. That's the crucial thing in this race. And meanwhile, for the VW Cup cars, the lead has gone Howard Fuller. It's 2nd for Jack Depper, 3rd for Martin Depper, 4th for Josh Coggan, and 5th for Andy Wilmot. But he's still crucially ahead of Bradley Kent, who's now behind Richard Gilbert. So, as you said, not a good start for Bradley, but at the moment, Andy Wilmot is effectively doing everything he needs to keeping out of trouble and finishing ahead of Bradley to wrap up this VW crown.
I think we'll see a very cautious Andy Wilmot in this race. He's had a non-finished Silverstone earlier in the year. He can't really afford another, because then actually Bradley Kent wouldn't have to finish all that high up the order to take it away from him. But you're right, it is Howard Fuller then, the big friendly giant as he's affectionately known. That's Richard Gilbert off at the old hairpin, but Howard Fuller on his return to the championship leading the way. It'll be a great feel-good story to see him grab a race win. Jack Depper second. Martin Depper was up into 3rd, but he's just lost that 3rd place to Josh Coggan in the Golf, who then runs wide, gets a wheel on the dirt, and you're ending up in the gravel if you do that. Or he just about avoids the gravel, but he certainly loses momentum out onto the pit straight. There is the number 22 car further back, and that is Mark Wakefield, as we suggested was the case. So Fuller leads in VW Racing Cup, Jack Depper in 2nd. At the head of the field, Henry Neal just set the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 12.4. He is going after Lewis Kent. He's taking Max Hart with him as well, only half a second between those two as they head on to the 3rd lap.
Interesting stuff here now, as we see that Howard Fuller is being reeled in pretty quickly by Jack Depper, and looking back, of course, with Josh Coggan going off, it hasn't really been sort of JM Racing's weekend with their 2 cars. Richard Gilbert's played with problems all the way through the first 2 races. It appears as though it's back up to some point kind of full speed now in many cases, but Josh Coggan's been off the road and had issues too after he retired from the 2nd race when the car stopped at Coppis, so not the best fortunes for them, but they'll regroup and I'm sure they'll be back next year to be stronger for a full championship charge. Meanwhile, we watch Martin Depper and Andy Wilmot, 2 drivers who I need to correct myself here, I think they have raced against each other on in pre-CCC, I think at the same time, I think in the past. At least they've driven NGTC cars in the past, at least maybe on the same track together. maybe, maybe not. I'll have to possibly check that. But either way, Lewis Kent continues to command the pace, but there is Henry Neal. Oh, Mark Wakefield's off the road. It's not been a good weekend for that Civic, and that is actually a carbon copy of what Jeff Alden did in race 1 yesterday. It's off the road, and I'm afraid, Mark, you can spin your wheels all you like. That's not going anywhere.
And the safety car is scrambled up. Panic then, because Lewis Kent was slowing down. He'd seen the safety car, but the safety car hasn't quite caught the leaders in time. So, well, that little cushion that he built up, about 1¼ seconds, is going to evaporate now, but it is Henry Neal right behind him. Max Hart in third. Now, interestingly, Max Hart and Henry Neal, I don't think they're on each other's Christmas card list, because remember, they had a bit of contact in the previous race, and just before... Mark Wakefield's out of the gravel now, that's just up, so it should be a brief safety car period in this. But yeah, just before we went on air for the post-race interviews earlier on, I did hear Henry and Max having an exchange of words, shall we say, about that contact that they had. And Max was saying that he just didn't see Henry there. I'm not sure Henry was buying it. So there may be a little extra incentive there for Max to get stuck in here. Although Henry is on the verge of wrapping up the title, Max is going to want to try and race him. And then, of course, you've got Darrell Wilson and Will Butler behind, who can also have a part to play in this. We've been saying all along that all Lewis Kent can do in this race is get to the lead, pull away, win, and hope for the best. Of course, there is another option, which is that he backs up Henry Neal and tries to make something happen that could really make him the champion. Now, it's not the gentlemanly thing to do, but who cares? It could be the thing that wins him the championship. And now that Henry's caught him anyway, I wonder if he might be tempted just to drive a little more defensively. He has to anyway to hang on to the race lead. And if it happens that Max Hart and Darrell Wilson and Will Butler start making Henry Neal's life a bit more difficult, well, so be it, I suppose. Yeah,
there's another way of looking at it in many cases. And also for Max Hart as well, just I'll come back to in a second with Max Hart with that point, is that I'm sure Henry Neal, if he said to him kind of, I'm fighting for a championship here, I'm sure Max Hart's response would just be been, and?
That is exactly, it's like you were there, that's exactly what the conversation was. That's what Henry said. He said, look, I'm fighting for a championship here. Lewis was mentioning that in his interview as well. But so what? The other drivers don't care. This is their last chance to go and grab a race victory of the year. They're going for it.
Yeah, absolutely so. But on to the point of Lewis Kent, I think from what we've seen before, whilst I agree that is a tactic which he could use, I think from what I've seen of Lewis Kent, him going slow a little bit on purpose to back people up, I don't think that's a thing. Well, it's a tactic that could work. It's not really a Lewis Kent thing to do, because normally when he gets in front, he likes to go out and do the whole charge in front, take the lead, create a big gap and dominate the race. That's what he wants to do. So whilst it possibly could be a weapon in his arsenal, it might not be the one he chooses to use, because therefore his preferred weapon is to use the raw pace that Hyundai has. Because remember, that's a car that's been developed by the likes of, originally when it's being conceived, Gabriel Tarquin and Alan May, two of the finest touring car drivers in the world that could tweak that chassis. And he's even had feedback from the factory Highlands. He went testing with it, I think it was at some point last year, I think in Portugal, to get that car as quick as it could be, getting the feedback from those guys in order to make it as quick as it could be. So he's had a lot of good people look at that car and help him out with it. And of course the little Essex and Kent outfit, which is looked after by his dad Warren and David Clear, who's his uncle as well, who's been putting it all together. They've shown faith in him and his career and trying to get him up to the way he should be. And they've got a lot of faith in him moving up through the ranks in touring cars. So winning races is all about what he wants to do. So I guess it'll be up to him what tactic he decides to choose. But I think right now for him, his main concern will be just keep Henry behind, and maybe it possibly could be no matter what he needs to do.
Yeah, well, he's really stacking them up here. He'll certainly like to bunch Henry Neal up a little bit on the restart, that is for sure. Safety car lights are off, so we're going racing this time with what's going to be just over 12.5 minutes to go. By the time they get to the chicane, Lewis Kent has gone already then, trying to carry maximum speed through the chicane, but he was a bit wide actually, outbraked himself slightly, so Henry Neal is going to be right on his tail again as we go racing again in the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy at Donington Park, and Lewis Kent is now having to defend the inside line because Henry Neal has got almost alongside him into the braking zone. Max Hart is there as well, and Max does have a go at the inside of Henry Neal, who says, do you know what, you want second place that badly? Go ahead and take it. It is not worth the fight right now. Henry's got a good gap back to Darrell Wilson and Will Butler behind him. Third place will be enough for the championship for Henry Neal, regardless of what Lewis Kent can do. And of course, Max Hart might just be able to go and challenge Lewis for the race win after all of this. So, sensible decision there from Henry.
Yeah, quite possibly. Whilst the TCT cars run off, Howard Fuller has maintained the lead in the VW Cup from the two Deppers. Jack ahead of Martin, then there's Andy Wilmot, who's got ahead of Josh Coggan whilst all that was happening before we had the safety car, so switch around there. Mark Wakefield has brought the Honda Civic into the pit lane, and that's had some troubles all weekend. There's some troubles on Friday evening sorting that car out, so not been great. Then change for the lead, in fact. Max Hart's got through, and this could be crucial because here comes Henry Neal then. He knows he doesn't have to win the race, but he'll go for it if it's been served to him on a plate. And there's side by side between the two main championship contenders. Henry Neal is on the inside line. He's in prime position to outbrake Lewis on the inside line. Lewis thinks, right, rather than be silly and try and risk an accident, he's not going to fight it. We'll try and set him up for a run down the pit straight. So in the blink of an eye, a few corners, Andy, it changes now the complexion of the race. And ironically, all it's done is Henry Neal is still second, but it's now Max Hart and Lewis Kent, ironically, have just swapped around. It's now Max Hart in the lead, Lewis Kent down to third, but crucially, he's now behind Henry Neal, but ultimately, if he stays there, it's championship guaranteed.
And Max third place Hart is finally perhaps about to break this run of third place finishes. He's finished third in every race this year. It's wonderfully consistent, but he'd love to get on the top step of the podium if he can, and in a car that we know has championship pedigree, he's got every chance of doing so. Darrell Wilson appears to have vanished somewhere on this lap because Will Butler's into fourth, and there is no sign of the green asterisk.
There he is in the background, he's gone off somewhere.
Yeah, it must have been, because he's rejoined behind the entire VW Racing Cup field. There is Andy Wilmot then, your champion-elect. I think we can start calling him in the VW Cup. He's lost some more ground, hasn't he? He's down to fourth place now. Josh Coggan behind him, was behind him, but he's now ahead of him. And Bradley Kent in sixth place, but Wilmot could actually finish behind Bradley by a few places in this race and still do enough to wrap up the title. There is Andy in the Team Hard Run VW Golf. His teammate still leading the way in the VW Cup. Howard Fuller, fifth place overall, and leading in the VWs by just under 2 seconds over Jack Depper.
So, halfway through the race now, the leading touring cars head to pass the race, and Henry Neal is now at the fastest lap of the race. I think he's possibly thinking, right, if we're going to do this, he's decided now, let's do it properly, let's go and get the race win. He's got the fastest lap of the race, he's going to dig his heels in now and see if he can do chosen to Max Hart. And there'll be a bit of a bit between his teeth with this one, won't there? Because, of course, he'll be thinking, right, after race 2, let's see how much he wants to get his elbows at. That said, does Henry really want to take that risk with the championship on the line? Because if it's a no score, if he does something which could end up ruining his race, that changes the whole championship and turns it on its head.
If he retires from this race, it's almost certain, unless he takes Lewis Kent with him, that Lewis will win the championship. So Henry has to think about this. As things stand, Henry would win the championship by 18 points at the moment, so he is doing more than enough ahead of Lewis Kent. But yeah, I mean, he said to me on the grid, yes, I'm thinking about the points, but if I can win the race, I'm going to try and win the race. And that is kind of the situation he's been presented with here. He's got a genuine shot at winning the race, and if he can do it without risking too much, I think he's definitely going to go for it. Here in the VW Racing Cup, thing is getting tighter though, because Jack Depper was on the previous lap 0.8 of a second quicker than Howard Fuller. I'm sure he's still getting used to that car again after so much time out of the cockpit. This lap, I think Jack has taken another 0.8 out of him, because he's always pushing the Golf down the back straight. In fact, he looks to the outside into the chicane, dabs the brakes, decides against that. Howard Fuller then defending the inside into the Robert chicane. This could bring Jack's father, Martin, into play, and also Josh Coggan there in the green number 12 VW Golf. All four of them have crossed the line now closer than ever.
And Andy Wilmot's dropped back from Josh Coggan, so maybe he's just taking a bit steadier now to try and hold on to his fifth position. Not taking it steady is these two. Howard Fuller defending the inside from Jack Depper, but as you rightly said, Martin Depper's closed in. He's brought Josh Coggan with him, so pretty exciting battle at the front here between the top four in VW Cup. Now, Darrell Wilson, of course, will come up and he's going to have to try and repass the VW Cup cars. So that said, intriguingly, you'd have thought that the pace difference between a TCR car and a VW Cup car would be quite significant, but that said, Darrell's not really on the same sort of pace to be able to really just fly past him. He's not closing up on them by several seconds a lap, so either something's happened which has caused a bit of an issue in terms of his pace. I'm not quite sure. Jack Depper, though, still on the attack on the back of Howard Fuller, looking this way and that, and Martin comes in for rear gunner support as he comes into it. He's going to become he's being assaulted either side by the Depper brigade now. He's got Jack to one side, Martin to the other. He hasn't got really any support from his teammate yet, as the top three in the TCR and the touring cars go past. Lewis Kent setting the fastest lap of the race, so he's not out of this yet. Look at this, it's now a double push from the Deppers now, as Jack goes one way, and there's contact, off goes Brian Fuller. I think possibly Howard Fuller didn't realise Jack was there, moved across to try and get through. Either that or Jack tried to go one way then the other and just tagged the back of Howard Fuller. Oh, that's disappointing. Out of it all, Depper now clumps the tyre barrier through the tyre stack through the final chicane. He's now given Martin the lead with Josh Coggan in third position. Oh, goodness me, and that is the damage from Howard Fuller's car. That's how hard he hit the barrier. Thankfully, he's walking in and out of the car, but goodness me. And now we see the two Deppers going into combat with Darrell Wilson getting out to pass them for on-track position. He's still towards the back of the touring car field. Where did that come from? That just kicked off out of nowhere.
Yeah, Howard Fuller was really defensive, wasn't he, into McLean's? They just stacked everyone up, and I think Jack Depper decided, right, now's my chance. But yeah, they just, I think one zigged, the other zagged, and they just kind of met in the middle out of coppers. I've seen that happen a few times over the years. Here, for the overall race lead, Max Hart is now under all sorts of pressure from Henry Neal, who is well and truly stuck between a rock and a hard place, isn't he? You've got the Cupra in front of him of Max Hart, who will do everything he can here to get his first ever win in the Touring Car Trophy, and he's got his championship rival Lewis Kent breathing down his neck, applying all the pressure he can in the hope that Henry makes a mistake and ends up off the road. So there are 3 cars all in contention to win the race, 2 of them fighting for the championship as well, and still just under 6.5 minutes of the race to go. Howard Fuller's car is far enough off the road at Coppice that I think we should be able to continue with no safety car. Lewis Kent is so committed through the crane of curves, isn't he? Gets within inches of the rear of the NGTC Honda Civic Type R. VW Cup, it's the 2 Scirocco's still ahead of the Golf. Andy Wilmot, of course, has inherited 4th place now after his teammate's demise. And 5th is Paul Evans, isn't he? Ahead of Bradley Kent. Evans ahead of Kent, 5th and 6th. So Evans having a decent run in his one of the regular face in the VW Racing Cup paddock. Out of Redgate they go then. Andy Wilmot quite content, I think, to sit in 4th place. He knows that's enough for the title. And, I don't think he's got any intention whatsoever of getting involved in this real scrum for the race lead as into the chicane come Hart and Henry Neal. Still the same order, but Henry, I think, is going to get tempted into having a go here, isn't he?
He really is pondering it, isn't he? As he said, he's going for the lead if he can do. He's going to go for it, gets a good run off of the final chicane on towards the Redgate corner with 5.5 minutes to go. Looks to the outside line, forcing Hart to go defensive. He will think about the undercut here, but again, he's going to be thinking about keeping one eye on Lewis Kent behind because he hasn't gone away. He's going to try and go around the outside if he can. I think Max Hart was a bit loose on the exit through Redgate into Hollywood, and now look at this, 1st, 2nd and 3rd, nose to tail through the crane of curves, and Kent is there again, looking back to the outside, forcing Neal to go defensive offline. Might switch back on the exit, which he's possibly going for. Runs wide into Henry Neal, tries to go defensive as he blocks any avenue for Lewis Kent to get through. Max Hart's getting away here as the 2 championship contenders are going through with almost 2 wheels on the grass there for Lewis Kent on the exit of Schwantz curve. But again, the harder they fight each other, the easier it is now at the moment, and for Max Hart to make a break.
I very much get the impression Lewis has been just letting Henry get on with this and trying to just sort of, because the only chance he's really got of winning this is if Henry has some sort of an issue, but Henry just dropped back a bit after that aborted attempt to pass going out of Redgate, and that's meant that Lewis felt maybe now was the time to attack, but I think they've both got the pace to catch Max Hart again here. Max is not the quickest of these 3, but he's defending well, and Max isn't stupid. He knows that the 2 drivers behind him, especially Henry Neal, are not going to take a massive risk here to get past him, so he can kind of play the 2 of them off against each other, and if they do catch him again before the end, I'm sure he will just start driving defensively again. Lewis Kent, will he work with Henry Neal here, maybe to catch back up to Max Hart? I suspect he might do. 4 minutes to go, so they can't really afford to trip over each other, otherwise they will run out of time to catch the Cupra.
And with 4 minutes to go, with it back to our VW Cup car, still a Depper 1-2 here. Jack with Martin as his rear gunner here as they come down the back straight. I think they did this yesterday's first race. It was a 1-2 for the Deppers with Jack ahead of Martin in that order. Better run for Josh Coggin so far in this 3rd position run. Of course, Andy Wilmot still 4th in the background there in the white and black Team Hard car with the pink trim. Down the pit straight once more. Josh Coggin has got a good run on the exit of that final chicane on the tail of Martin Depper now. And Jack's starting to pull away here, so maybe Martin possibly starting to fall back into that, as I keep calling it, rear gunner position. Not for long, he's not though. Up the inside into 2nd, first Josh Coggin, and up into P2 goes the JM Racing Golf with that TCR style body kit on it as he heads through Hollywood. So the Deppers have been split up now, and now it's a possible chance for Josh Coggin to charge after him and possibly try and deny the Jack Depper of making it 3 wins out of 3. Meanwhile, with the TCT runners, Henry Neal scored a small gap to Lewis Kent on that lap, and in turn Max Hart's extended his gap, I think, to roughly, what is it now, 5 or 6 seconds. So whatever's been going on between both Henry Neal and Lewis Kent, whilst it's seen it off camera, it's been totally to the benefit of Max Hart in the lead.
Well, Henry set the fastest lap that time though, 1 minute 10.7, so he was 4 tenths quicker than the leader. He's inching back towards Max and actually dropping Lewis slightly, 7 tenths further back to Lewis in 3rd. These 3, I think all 3 of them covered by about 7 tenths, if that. Jack Depper ahead of Josh Coggin, easy for me to say, and Martin Depper then, Coggin in a Depper sandwich, in a Scirocco sandwich as well. The 2 Deppers in those very, very well prepared and good looking Scirocco's, and you will want people watching Reeve in 4th position on his way maybe to the championship. Be disappointing in a way if he wasn't on the podium, because I might not get the chance to speak to our VW Racing Cup champion if he's not in the top 3 overall. So it's time yet, if something happens in front of him, he might be able to inherit another position. Right, here we go again. Henry Neal has caught Max Hart, and this time actually isn't under any immediate pressure from Lewis Kent, so this might be the best chance he's had all race, arguably, to try and get past the Irishman. 2 minutes to go, so 2 more laps remaining in this one. Lewis has really dropped back. point, I wonder if he's got some sort of an issue. That car has been known to use its tyres a little bit harder than certainly the Cupra, possibly the Honda as well. This is a place that will punish that left front tyre in a front wheel drive touring car, but whatever the reason is, he's definitely further back now from Henry than he's been.
I was about to say whether or not he'd been concerned about the possibility of that was reached, but the way he attacked with the crane of curve suggests probably not just yet. I think you might be right. Maybe he has taken a bit too much out of his tyres whilst trying to get stuck behind and getting in the turbulent air that Henry Neal's been producing. But speaking of turbulent, it's getting pretty turbulent at the front of the VW Cup class. We've got the top 4 all together now. Andy Wilmot is still in the conversation, but he's keeping a watching brief these top pits to see if anything happens. It might do, because Martin Depper's having a look up the inside, forces Josh Coggan wide. Now Andy Wilmot thinks, right, can I have third place please? Josh Coggan's wide on the exit, Wilmot's alongside him on side by side. Now the two Deppers are first and second again, but Wilmot, if he continues this drive out of the final corner onto the pit straight, which I think he might do, either he'll brave it around the outside, or if he's smart, he might well just let him go and have a look at him a few corners later. Paul Ivans, in fact, has come quite quickly. He's up to 5th position now. Bradley Kent 6th. And just behind him, here comes the TCT runners with Max Hart flashing the headlights saying, Bradley, I like you very much, but please get out of the way because I want to try and win this race, which has now gone on to, I think, its final lap of the season.
Indeed it has. So here we go then. Last lap of 2020. It's been a strange old year, hasn't it? But we've had some really great racing, some of the most competitive racing we've had so far in the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy. And Max Hart then, is he about to end the season with that first win? He's got probably only one back marker to negotiate, which is Bradley Kent. So Henry Neal's last overtake of the year might be against the brother of the man who is trying to fight for the championship. The Deppers look as though they're going to try and settle the VW Racing Cup portion of the race in a private battle between themselves. Andy Wilmot in 4th on course for the title. Paul Ivans is reeling them in. I'm not sure he's quite going to have time to get there. As they go down the exhibition straight, is Martin Depper going to have a go at getting past his son into the chicane? No, not quite. Whether maybe he'll be tempted just to bring home a formation finish for those two. Max Hart, though, is heading into the Robert chicane. He's finally going to do it. It took him until the 7th and final round of the championship, but we do have a new race winner in the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy. Max Hart wins the race. Henry Neal wins the championship, and with a really classy drive there in that final race of the season. Lewis Kent comes home in 3rd. It's not going to be enough for the TCT title. He is the top TCR runner, though, in 2020, and for that, I'm sure he will be very, very grateful. As for VW Cup, though, that's still all to play for.
Really is. The two Deppers then nose to tail as they come out through the old hairpin, and Martin wouldn't put it past him possibly. Either he's in two minds here. He'd be happy to see his son Jack take a triple the victories, but if he's got a chance to take the victory, he will do, I'm sure, if he can. But he knows Josh Coggan's not too far away in 3rd position. And Wilmot will sit back in 4th for the moment as we come up through Coppice Corner for the last time. And I think possibly, unless Martin's going to make a move here on Jack and the last chicane, may well be a carbon copy in the top 2 positions of what we saw in race number 1. As for our champion-elect, it seems as though he's dropped back to 4th, and he's not going to be troubled anymore. So, down to the chicane for the last time. It's not a bad return to the championship for these two, particularly for Jack. He hasn't finished all race and all season, and now he comes along and does the treble. It's a close one-run thing for Josh Coggan, but it is going to be Jack Depper who wins just ahead of Martin Depper and Josh Coggan. Meanwhile, weaving from side to side, 4th place is enough for Andy Wilmot to become the 2020 Volkswagen Racing Cup champion, and he is absolutely delighted. What a way for the man who is also one half of the Trade Price Cars Racing squad. I'm sure that he will get to be boasting that quite a lot when he gets back to the BTCC paddock, I'm sure. So well done to him in 4th place. 5th for Paul Ivans as well, and it will be 6th place for Bradley Kent, who couldn't get the job done in the end, unfortunately, with Richard Gilbert in 7th. So the final result of the season for the TCT, TCR and VW Cup sees Max Hart finally get that first win. He breaks the string of 3rd place to his first win, and the first win for a Cupra car all season. Henry Neal, though, is 2nd place, and that's enough to wrap up the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy champion, so congratulations to him. He's now, just like his father, a touring car champion. How about that? Lewis Kent, 3rd place, tried so hard all season. It would have been he's a very, very worthy runner-up, and would have been a very, very worthy champion had he succeeded. But credit where credit's due, brilliant effort from the team all season. William Butler survives to 4th. Darrell Wilson fell back in 5th. Jack Depper completes a hat-trick in the VW Cup, and he wins for that for Martin Depper. And Andy Wilmot actually is 3rd, in fact, so it is going to be 3rd place for Andy Wilmot, because Josh Coggan, I think, has been given a time penalty by the looks of things, for reasons maybe track limits or so. So Andy Wilmot, in fact, is on the podium. So that's a celebration. So hopefully, if Andy gets down there, he will find out that it will in fact himself he'll be able to speak to our new champion. Paul Evans and Josh Coggan round out the top 10 finishers. And the rest of the order should be Bradley Kent and Richard Gilbert. And it's sad that we lost Howard Fuller after he got tagged by Jack Depper. Mark Wakefield, who of course who had that issue after he spun off in the gravel in the car which Jeff Alden's been driving all weekend. And that's for Sam Osborne. Had the problem on the formation lap and didn't even complete a racing lap, sadly. But he's got great pace. If he does come back to TCR, he will certainly want to make that happen. So well done to everyone involved in the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy, TCR UK and VW Cup. We're going to hand over to Andy back at the pit, and who can have a chat hopefully to both of our new champions, race winner Max Hart and champions Henry Neal and also Andy Wilmot, as well as Jack Depper, who won the third race in the VW Cup. Andy, over to you.
Well, so many stories at the end of that race there. Max Hart at last gets his first visit to the top step of the podium, and this is how you celebrate. You break the winner's board here as he came in, but a brilliant race result that for Max. And Henry Neal is the 2020 Dunlop Touring Car Trophy champion. Well, Max Hart is with me now. I'll go with the race winner first. At last, I bet that feels good.
Yeah, at last, yeah, sure does feel good. That was a mega race. Really enjoyed that. That was hard work too.
Yeah, not easy at all. But how conscious were you though of the fact that these two had their championship to think about?
Yeah, I knew about it. Like I didn't have plans on interfering with it or anything, so I kind of just tried to pull a gap as soon as I got in front, and they were kind of all over me, and then I slowly started to pull a gap, and then I was just head down, just try to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it was relentless out there. Every time it looked like Henry had dropped back, he'd start inching back towards you. It must have felt like a very long 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was. After, I'd say, about the first 5 laps, I didn't want it to be over, but I just wanted it to be finished so I could take the P1. But no, I'm super happy taking P1.
Great way to end the season. What does this mean for you now going forward? Do you know what your plans are for next year yet?
We've no plans for next year. So, yeah, well, I guess it's just a waiting game to see what we're doing next year. I just want to thank all my sponsors, because without them I wouldn't be able to be here and do things like this. And thanks to Maximum Motorsport for fixing the car as well after Friday. And well done to Donington and MSV for running a great show.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Congratulations. So good to see Max Hart at last on the top step of the podium. But for the championship, it's all about Henry Neal. Henry, well done. I'll tell you what, when I spoke to you before the race, for the first time ever, I think, I could feel the nerves coming from you. I think, despite what you were saying to me, it must have been in the back of your mind that it could still go wrong.
Well, yes, that's it. It ain't over till it's over. And I knew we had one more race to do. We had to finish 4th if Lewis won. So I just treated it like every other race, go for as high as possible. I got on the back of Max 3 times, but to be fair to him, he was defending really well, and I just couldn't seem to get away past. I was looking for the lunge somewhere, but he just covered off that inside line. But over the moon, can't believe it, champion. So absolutely psyched.
This really means something to you.
Oh, huge. It's like to do it at my dad's ex car is just like the best thing ever, so psyching.
And you're both touring car champions now.
Not quite at that level, but yeah, I'll take it.
Oh, I would. Well done, Henry, on your 2020 champion, Henry Neal. Now, where's the man that pushed him so hard right to the end? Lewis Kent is over by his car. Who'd have thought? Let's have a wander over, shall we? Lewis Kent then coming home. In the end, 3rd place in the race, 2nd place in the championship. Lewis, it's not quite the TCT title, but you've caught a lot of eyes this year. Another really strong season for you.
Yeah, another one. No, we've wrapped up TCR UK, you know, 3rd time lucky, as they say. So we've tried it for 3 years, we've finally got it. So we're pleased with that. And you know, I've said to everyone, once you go against a works team, you have to get your work cut out for you. But no, we tried our hardest. You know, great credit to Henry. He deserves it the most out of us. You know, he's been trying hard all year. And no, we're really happy with how we've done. And 2nd ain't too bad. You know, hopefully. As I've said before on some of the interviews, I'm hopefully going to move on to some big things next year, and no, you'll see me around. So no, it's been a good year. I think
we're going to hear a lot more about Lewis Kent over the years. Congratulations, runner-up in the TCT, but he is, as he said, the TCR UK champion for 2020. Right, VW Cup time now. The win, of course, went to Jack Depper. It was a Depper 1-2 actually, with Jack taking the victory and Martin 2nd. There he is. Jack getting out of his car now. Well. That was interesting, wasn't it? Is it more or less stressful when it's your father challenging you for the win on the last lap?
I think it's more stressful knowing the experience he's got behind him. But no, we had a good battle. It wasn't as clean as I'd like it to be, but that's racing sometimes. But no, 3 out of 3, what can I say? Brilliant, fabulous, phenomenal.
To hook us through that moment, I mean, obviously Howard was in there in the lead battle. What happened between you two coming out Coppice?
Yeah, so I got a brilliant run down the straight, and I was on his arse, and I think I just overlapped him, and he hadn't realised, so he tried to come back over, but my car was there and it just sent him off, which is unfortunate. I would like to, raced a lot more with him, but hey ho, you know, there's not much we can do to prevent that.
Well, this man next year, he was claiming all of the credit for your race win earlier on. Maybe you wish you hadn't taught him so well now.
I like to think I was doing a good rear gunner's job there, wasn't it, really? No, Jack's driving fantastically well. You know, he's full of ballast, and I could see he was struggling in some places, but it's been a great weekend, and whilst there was some opportunity, obviously I wasn't going to spoil it, so you know, another 1-2 is perfect for the family trophy cupboard, and another fantastic moment, so yeah, really proud of him. He's done a fantastic job. We'll have to keep an eye on him now, won't we?
I think so. Both very talented drivers. Well done to both of the Deppers then. Third place was... Andy Wilmot is here somewhere, apparently. There he is. Andy, well done. Thanks for stopping, first of all. Wasn't sure if we'd... Thanks, Henry. Wasn't sure if we'd get a chance to talk to you, but I'm glad we have. You just about held on. I bet that was a nervy 20 minutes.
Yeah, anyone challenging me, I was just letting them go. All I had to do was stay in front of Bradley for that one. In fact, he had to get a P2 and I could just cruise around at the back. So I wasn't fighting. I was enjoying it though. Still maintaining our little mechanical problem. It was a straight line thing. Coming out the corners, we just didn't have power to sort of double click the throttle to get the boost back up. But I'm so pleased, so pleased. 2 championships on the bounce, one last year, one this year. I didn't think it was going to happen, but it has. And thanks to obviously Maximum to getting me to Silverstone Point, and then Team Hart to get me here right now. So joint effort. I'm so pleased. It's amazing.
Great to have Team Hart back on the grid as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. They haven't been on the grid for a while. They did make an appearance at the beginning of the season with Ollie Brown, who then went into touring cars. Team Hart didn't have anyone else to fill the seat. So. When I said, I'm not going to do it, I'm not bothered. Obviously, they caught wind of that and come and have a go with us. I was like, I'm not really fussed, but I'm so pleased I did now. It's just such a weight lifted. This has been the most stressful weekend of my life. Obviously, I thought last year was stressful going into a championship, going into it in P2 in the championship, and that's exactly how I've gone in this year. But just more stress because it's a much more competitive championship. There hasn't been as many cars on the grid as usual, but nevertheless, it's still been such a hard slog. But it's, to be honest, majority of it's reliability and consistency. We managed to do it, so I'm really pleased and thankful to everyone that's supported me. No sponsors, just myself. But yeah, the supporters have been amazing. So without them, and 2 good teams getting me to this point. So thank you.
And congratulations then, Andy Wilmot, your 2020 VW Racing Cup champion. Huge congratulations to Henry Neal for wrapping up the Touring Car Trophy as well. That's it for 2020 in the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy. Some more racing still on its way here from Donington Park. But what a fabulous season of Touring Car Trophy racing it's been.
Are you going down to the podium?
Yes, today. I mean, there aren't many unbusy days at Donington Park as a marshal, but...
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Addy. Congratulations to our 2 new champions in the BRSCC roster, being Henry Neal being the Touring Car Trophy champion. Of course, Lewis Kent, of course, was wrapped up the TCR honours as well within that category. And, of course, Andy Wilmot, who is a very worthy VW Cup champion as well. Should also mention there is a Sunoco award as well for the fastest lap in both championships. So it is a Sunoco award goes to Sam Osborne in the TCT ranks for getting the fastest lap all weekend. And in the VW Cup, a bit of a silver line for JM Racing. It's Richard Gilbert who picks that one up as well. Bit of a clear up going on for the end of that race. We've still got 2 more races to go. The next one coming up being our second of our Miltech Civic Cup races, where we will actually wrap up the title now for either way between Bruce Winfield and Alistair Camp. And of course it looks as though with Bruce Winfield 21 points ahead of Camp heading into the second race, it looks like a foregone conclusion on paper, but of course it's never that simple when it comes to championship design, as we've seen with